And welcome. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to depart for the United States. The visit makes Prime Minister Modi just the third world leader after France's Macron and South Korea's Yeol to be invited by President Biden for a state visit and dinner. A roadmap for defense industrial cooperation is expected to be the key outcome of Narendra Modi's U.S. visit. Amid China's territorial ambitions, Washington is working to deepen ties with the world's largest democracy and sees deeper military-to-military and technology ties. Here's what the Indian Foreign Secretary had to say about the visit.
The next key component which will also be showcased prominently during the visit is the bilateral defense cooperation. It has been a critical pillar of our engagement. And within that, a new element this year during this visit we expect is the progress on defense industrial cooperation roadmap.
The Indian Prime Minister's visit will begin in New York, where he will lead the celebrations of the International Day of Yoga at the United Nations headquarters on June 21st. Starting in 2014, the International Day of Yoga has become one of the major events in the annual calendar of activities of the United Nations. In New York, the Prime Minister will also interact with eminent personalities. Washington, D.C. will roll out the red carpet on June 22nd when Joe Biden hosts Narendra Modi. The U.S. President will hold bilateral talks with the Indian Prime Minister. The Biden administration is all set to sign a deal that would allow U.S.-based General Electric to produce engines for military aircrafts on Indian soil. While India can manufacture jets domestically, it is keen to get the technical know-how to make aircraft engines. India intends to produce more than 350 fighter jets for its Air Force and Navy over the next 2 decades, which could be powered by the General Electric's engine 414. Top lawmakers in the United States have invited Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address Congress when he visits the capital of the world's largest economy. Remember, the rare opportunities granted only to the country's closest allies. On June 23rd, the Indian Prime Minister will be hosted by U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and Secretary of State Antony Blinken. He will also interact with top chief executives and community leaders. Top U.S. leaders are looking forward to the Indian Prime Minister's visit. Here's what the chairperson of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee had to say.
I wish him well in his visit to Washington. From our trade and economic engagement to our security cooperation to our people-to-people ties, the India-U.S. relationship is critically important. We have made considerable strides in recent years, and I hope for even more in the future.
Last May, Biden and Prime Minister Modi announced a bilateral initiative on critical and emerging technology dubbed as ICET. The two leaders directed their governments to work together on advanced technology from AI to semiconductor chips and quantum computing, especially in defense. And for more on this visit to the United States by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, we are now being joined by our diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibol, live from New York City at the Times Square. Siddhant Sibol, good to see you. Modi is set to make a state visit to the United States. A roadmap for defense industrial cooperation is expected to be the key outcome of what this visit will entail. What can you tell us about this?
Well, Eric, first of all, good morning to you. It is evening time here in New York. It is Monday evening, but essentially this will be a week that is historic in every sense possible for India-US relationship as both countries cement their relationship further. Now, we know, and as you have been talking about, defense forms a key focus of this visit with a slew of initiatives and announcements expected to be made, but also remember that this visit will see focus on how both countries come together at a time of great geopolitical flux and a very aggressive China. Well, China has been aggressive with both India and US in some way or another, and that is something that will be part of the ongoing discussion, the larger discussion between the two leaders. But of course, here in New York, where the Indian Prime Minister lands, that will be tomorrow, local time. The focus, of course, will be yoga. That, of course, will bring the color to the entire visit. We know that the Indian Prime Minister gave the idea of Yoga Day way back in 2014, and since then it has some way or another become a celebration of sorts regarding yoga almost every year. And this year, of course, he will be leading. The big question is the big American influencers who will be present there, and everyone will be closely watching as to who the influencers will be. But largely we know that Yoga Day celebration will be followed by conversations in Washington. The flags are already up in Washington, D.C. to welcome the Indian Prime Minister. And the message both India and the U.S. will be giving as to how both countries are working together on a range of issues, whether it's security, whether it's defense, whether it's trade, or whether it is critical technology initiatives, something that we have seen both NSAs taking a lead on.
Siddharth Sibol, let's talk more about these issues, and China is one of them. China's increasing assertiveness, of course, is going to be a major issue of focus as these two leaders meet. How can this partnership between the United States and India help counter China?
Well, I can put it like in a way that the Americans might be seeing India as their best bet against the Chinese at a time of increased aggressiveness by the Chinese. I'm saying with this with a lot of caution as well, given that the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken was in Beijing, and we do expect the Chinese Foreign Minister to also travel to Washington as part attempts to make sure the relationship becomes normal. But it is highly unlikely that when it comes to China, any country can have a normal relationship, be it India, whether it's US. So of course, China remains a worrisome factor. Both New Delhi and Washington are aware of Chinese aggressive actions in the region, and of course they have been calling for a free and open and of course stable Indo-Pacific. That is a message to Beijing. But will Beijing hear to about the countries? It's also highly unlikely. It has been violating the rules-based order several times in the region. Now, of course, it's just not India and the US coming together, but it's larger Quad also coming together, Quad cooperation, while the China might see as Asian NATO. It's coming together of countries in a way that they share common values, and of course they share common challenges as well. So China remains the dragon, to use the phrase, in the room, and this of course is part of every conversation, just not the American and the Indian conversation.
Right. Live from Times Square, New York, our diplomatic correspondent Siddharth Sibol, thank you. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.